on March 26, 2020 for the Princeton City Council at City Hall, address 705 2nd Street North, Princeton, Minnesota. What I'm going to do underneath our agenda is I'm going to do roll call for everybody that I see on the screen. And I just need you.
Oh,
I've just been muted.
I've got Public Works Director Gerald. Next in line would be Steve Jackson, City Finance Director, Nancy Campbell, Liquor Store Manager, John Sauter. John's there. Todd for the engineer, Counselor Jack Edmonds, Tim Hanniger, newspaper editor, Damian, City Attorney, Counselor Jenny Gerald, Chief Todd Fredericks, Chris from the wastewater sewer plant. I can see him. Jen Edison from WSB, civil engineer. Next, Robert Barbian. Next, Alex, engineer. Next, Thomas Duden from Princeton Township. Next will be Todd Olin, civil engineer. Next, Bill Whitcomb, Princeton Township supervisor. Next is Jessica. I can't read her last name, but is she there? I see talking, yes. Actually, it's not Jessica, that is Ben Barton, our superintendent. Okay, next will be Counselor Jewel Zimmer. Next will be Eric Swabber. Next will be Eric Sandberg. Final will be Seth Monroe. Next on the list will be Shauna Jenkins, our city clerk. And then I see Troy. Next will be Chris Thielen. And then we come back to Counselor Reynolds. Is everybody ready? I'm going to call for the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody could make sure that their phones are on silent and the meeting is on mute, I'm going to stand and I'm going to initiate the Pledge of Allegiance for us, okay? I can't see myself. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next on the agenda is additions, deletions, and corrections. I want to remind the City Council and also all the members that are on this Zoom meeting. This is not a conference call. Robert's Rules of Order are going to be followed through this process. If you want to talk, you need to be called on so that we can move this along. Additions, deletions, or corrections. I have an addition. I'll start first. Robert Barbian asked, line item number 15, read approve, disapprove, waive of late fees for sewer bills. Okay. Are there other additions, corrections, or deletions to the agenda for our City Council? And reminder, you'll have to take your item off of mute. Like Jeff Reynolds, you're on mute. I can see that.
I have none, Brad. This is Jules.
Jules. So Jules makes a motion to approve the agenda with the one change.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
The second is by Jenny Gerald. I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Number 4, consideration of the City Council meeting minutes of 4.1, regular meeting minutes of March 12th, 2020, and 4.2, special emergency meeting minutes of March 19th, 2020. Wishes of the city council to approve both of those items or to do them separate.
I'll make a motion to approve both of the meeting minutes.
Jeff Reynolds makes a motion to approve both items. Do we have a second?
And I'll second it.
Jack Edmonds, Counselor Jack Edmonds seconds it. I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Consent agenda. Item 5.1, permits and licenses. I'm going to read all three of these. 5.1, 3.2, off-sale liquor license for Coburn's. 5.12, gambling permit for Princeton Chamber of Commerce duck race raffle, June 4th, 2020. 5.1.3, Princeton Speedway intoxicating liquor license for 2020 racing season pending payment and background check. Wishes of the council, or does staff want to elaborate on 5.1.3?
I can speak to that. This is Shauna. They do in shorter seasons. We usually get it about this time, and the license will go through the middle of September.
Questions from council regarding that? If not, entertain a motion to approve all three items or individually.
I'll make a motion to approve all three items.
Counselor Jenny Gerald makes a motion to approve all three items. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Counselor Jack Edmonds gives a second. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 5.2, personnel. 5.2.1, accept the resignation of Public Works Bob Blackwelder effective April 2nd, 2020. 5.2.2, accept resignation of liquor clerks Barbara Olson effective 3/25/2020. Approve hiring liquor store clerk Marcus Lay. Wishes of the council, questions, or approve all three.
I'll make a motion to approve all three.
Counselor Jack Edmonds makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Counselor Jules Zimmer gives a second. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 5.3, donations and designations. 5.3.1, resolution 2022, accept donation from Coburn's to the fire department. Wishes of the council, or do we want the fire chief to talk about this?
This is Jack. I'm certainly not opposed to it, but maybe he could explain a little bit about it, if it's a historical thing or is it a first year thing, I guess. Kind of general question.
Chief Lawrence, if you could unmute.
Mr. Mayor, Chief Lawrence is not here yet. He's on a call.
Counselor Edmonds, do you want to table it, or do you want to accept it or move forward, or do you want to reserve it and come back to it if if Chief Lawrence comes here by the end of the meeting?
No, I will move to approve it. I'm sure everything is fine. So,
Okay, I got
kind of hear
Yep.
what it's about. So
a motion from Counselor Edmonds. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Counselor Gerald. I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Open forum, number 6. Open forum is a time for you to come forward to speak to the public. If you want to speak to the public, I'm going to have to make sure that you unmute your computer and then raise your hand so we can call on you. I'm here at City Hall now, and there isn't anybody here in the audience other than the editor from the newspaper and the Princeton Bulletin Board not chairperson. Administrator of the Princeton Bulletin Board. I'm going to ask Shauna because as city council, we asked the public to submit any emails to our city council if they had questions. Shauna, at this time, have you received any emails for questions for open forum for our city council meeting, March 26th, 2020?
No, I have not received any emails or phone calls.
Okay. Administrator Barbian, have you received any calls or emails from somebody in the meantime to be on open forum?
No, I have not.
Okay. I'll refer back. Anybody, if I could go through, I'm going to click through here from left to right and make sure nobody's got their hand up that they want to talk about public forum. I'm on myself. I'm scrolling through. It's noted. Let the record be noted. I went through the Zoom catalog of everybody logged in and nobody had their hand up. Moving on, number 7, public hearings. 7.1, resolution 2019 and quick claim for right-of-way drainage and utility purposes. Staff.
Mayor and council, we have a guest that's present on Zoom, Seth Monroe. This is a second reading, and I believe there's a map that's attached that everybody's had time to review that shows the land that we were discussing at the last meeting. It was on West Birch Road. I'll turn it over to Seth Monroe to see if he has comments or an explanation he wishes to provide.
Seth, you just came off of mute.
I did. I'm here to represent Kelly Johnson of KDJ Custom Homes. He's out of town and couldn't attend, but we did a survey for a split along West Branch Street to split 2 parcels. And as part of that, I worked with Mary Lou in the office, and she had worked with the city attorney as well. With Paul Dove in the city attorney's office, and determined this quitclaim deed that was going to be deeded for the right of way of West Branch Street. And that was being accomplished as part of the land split process.
And if I could go back to Council Reynolds, this was talked about at our planning commission.
Oh, sorry. My internet must have dropped there. But yeah, we reviewed this at Planning Commission, and it looked to be in the best interests of the city and the owner. So
Okay. And what we would be doing then is giving a final reading and approval for resolution 2-19, right, Mr. Murphy?
That is correct.
Okay. Wishes of the city council to approve resolution 2019.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2019.
The motion has been made by Councilor Zimmer. Do I have a second?
I'll
second.
second.
Second. I have a motion and I have a second by Councilor Gerald. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to 7.2.3, 3rd and 82nd Avenue Improvement Hearings. Administrator Barbian, am I going to call the public hearing first, and then we're going to go through the resolutions after the public hearing? Am I right?
I think that would be best.
Okay. So I would ask that the city council make a motion to enter into a public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilor Edmonds at 7:15 p.m. to
Excuse me.
open into
Can
open
anybody
session.
hear me?
Do I have a second?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I can hear the attorney, yes.
Yeah, I raised my hand on the app and it didn't come up. There are, before you open the public hearing, there is a procedure or a sequence that really should be followed. I don't know if your honor has all of the various resolutions that I prepared throughout the day today. And there's been some updates on the issues before the council that I think everybody needs to be aware of before any action is taken. But procedurally speaking, the first thing that should happen is that the council should pass the resolution that was prepared that, and I don't have a resolution number, all I have is what I sent to the city. But the resolution receiving the feasibility report and calling the hearing on the improvement should be passed first, because that is the resolution that sets the public hearing for tonight. Then upon the passage of that resolution, Your Honor can call then for the public hearing to be opened and discussion had with respect to that. I don't know if now is the time to relay additional information to the council with respect to the joint powers agreement, or if you want to wait to have that discussion. It is our recommendation that the actions that the city council take tonight be very limited in scope. And I've relayed all of that information to Mr. Barbian, which either he or I can relay to the council as well. But from a procedural standpoint, before the public hearing is opened, I think that resolution needs to be passed first.
So excuse me for that mistake then. So what you're saying, Attorney Damian, is that the resolution that's before you on the screen, if some people have opened the shared screen, that's the resolution you'd like considered before the public hearing would be called to order, correct?
I don't see anything on the screen.
You don't have the shared screen.
You don't have the shirt. Well, let me go back. Stephanie, can you mute whichever one that is for me, please?
Done.
Okay, I want to go back. Counselor Edmonds, you made the motion to open the public hearing. Will you withdraw that motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw it and re-motion to approve resolution number 2020, the way it looks, if that's okay.
Yep, so going back for Shauna, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so he's withdrawn his motion. He's made a motion to approve resolution 2020, accepting the feasibility report and calling on the public hearing for improvements. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Reynolds. Any further discussion on the motion and the second?
Yes, this is Todd. If I could ask a question.
Yep.
I see the resolution has an estimated total cost of improvements of $87,467.26. The number I had in the feasibility study was $81,467.26. If that makes a difference, I don't know if some was added to that number or what.
Do you want to speak to that? I know what the answer is. Okay, when you go through the beginning process of the resolution, you have to pick the number that's the highest amount that it could be, because you can never come back and raise it higher than that amount. So what you're doing is putting in a buffer. It always can be lower, but it can never be higher. And ask the city attorney confirm that statement.
I can confirm the statement that you just made, but I do want to go back and look at the feasibility report to see if in fact there was a typo or miscommunication between Mr. Barbian and myself on the feasibility report, which and I believe if you is there a I'm not sure if it's attached to this one, but one of the resolutions has an attached Exhibit A, or that may be attached to the draft of the Joint Powers Agreement that actually carried over the grid that was prepared in that. And as I'm looking at the feasibility study now, and as I look at attached Exhibit A to the feasibility report, Okay, I do see here that the total assessed cost is in fact $81,467.26. I think that is a typo in the resolution. I believe the reason why there was a typo is because in some of the other documentation, that number was reduced to, I believe, $77,000 and change, because that amount would be the cap that the city would pay the township for any costs incurred for the construction project itself that was included in the JPA, because what we did is we took away from that 81,467.26 the 5% holdback for engineering and legal fees. So I believe your point is correct. I believe that the resolution should be amended to reflect the maximum total assessment of 81,467.26.
Okay. And we're going to defer to Administrator Barbian, and then we'll go back and we'll ask the council who made a motion and a second. Friendly. You're going to have to just speak into it louder. And I'm moving.
Be in here instead of in there.
Thank you, City Attorney. That is correct. It is a typo and it should be the 81,000. Todd, thanks for catching it.
So as mayor, I'd ask that we would go back and ask Councilor Edmonds if he would take a friendly to make that amendment to change it to $81,467.26. Councilor Edmonds, would you take that as a friendly?
Yes, I would.
Okay, then I'll go back. The second was by Councilor Reynolds. Councilor Reynolds, will you accept that friendly?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a motion, I have a second, I have a friendly. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amended motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I got 5. No opposed. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, I'm gonna go back now, and so that's 5-0. Let me fix that on there. And now, if I could go to the city attorney, now, do you want to move forward with calling for the public hearing for the improvements?
Yes, that would be fine, and invite comments from the interested parties. Before that happens, though, I do want to note that at some point in time, prior to the passage of any further resolutions, that there needs to be a discussion about where we are on the joint powers agreement with the township, as well as a clarification as to how far the city can go with respect to the assessment process at tonight's meeting. So I'll defer to your honor if you want to open the meeting now, or if you want me to comment now.
I want to open the meeting first, and then have your comments follow that back. Councilor Edmonds, will you make a motion to approve calling for the hearing on the improvements like you did before?
Yes.
Councilor Edmonds calls for the public hearing at 7:24 p.m. on Thursday, March 26th. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Reynolds. So I have a motion, I have a second to open for public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. The city council is open for public hearing comments regarding these improvements.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just start out by saying a couple of introductory comments. First, can anybody or everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Just a couple of general comments. This is a project that the Township of Princeton's been working on for some time. I think about a year ago, we had an initial meeting to consider a partnership to establish how we might be able to work together. Things moved quite quickly in the last month, and on the reconstruction of two roads that have joint jurisdiction, and that part of the road is in the city limits and part of the road is in the township. Stephanie, if you could go down to one of the maps that would show the road, that would probably be very appropriate.
Back noise, yep.
So if you'll page down on the shared screen, seems to have dropped. But in either case, so the city has, and the township have proceeded on this project. The township has put bids out for this project, and at this particular time, we have costs for the project that have been provided to the city. The city is in the process of holding a public hearing to consider assessing the property which is in the city limits, which is along 33rd and 4th Avenue. I think it's commonly known in the township as 82nd Avenue. And from here, I'm going to just introduce the engineer who's been working for both the township, and now also they're working with the city of Princeton on the assessment process. So Todd McLuth is online, and he's with is it Symbitech? Todd?
No, with Laux.
Oh, excuse me. So maybe you could just give us some more background and go over the project, please.
Well, I think the council is fairly familiar with the project. We went over that in the March 5th meeting, I believe. And familiar with the feasibility study. 33rd Street on east of 82nd is a shared road, as you mentioned. And the township is looking for participation from the city to pay for half of that. The same with 82nd Avenue south of 33rd. The township is looking for the city to help participate in the cost of that half of the road. As I understand, the property owners of abut those roads is the school district, which is only one owner, and that would be the only parcel assessed. That would be the assessment cost of that $81,467.26. I guess unless anybody has any other questions, I kind of wraps it up.
Well, yeah, hold on. I'm going to go back. Mr. Barbieri, for you. Okay. I'm going to go back so we can go through the public comment portion that we would have. And I'm just going to scroll across the screen to see who's got their hand up first. Scrolled across the screen. You can't see what I'm doing unless you're on the bulletin board. Nobody has their hand up regarding public comment. I defer back off the Zoom, back to the public who are here, the newspaper editor, or
Ben Barton has his hand up.
now he does. Let's go back to Ben Barton. Nope, so we're gonna need Superintendent Ben Barton to speak up or change his mic.
I'm here, and I did press the button that
Okay.
had hand up electronically, and I'm quite familiar with Zoom as we use this quite often. So, Mr. Mayor and City Council, it is always an honor to partner with you to serve the community in the greater Princeton community. And we partner in lots of different areas. It's also an honor for us to be able to serve the educational needs of over 3,300 students and employ over 500 people in our community. And it's quite a responsibility. And I should add, we do have an additional 500 children that we serve in early childhood, and many of our adult learners in the community as well. So we take that responsibility. We don't take that responsibility lightly, and it's important, and it's an honor to serve. Our district has a mission, and we have a continuous improvement plan. Our continuous improvement plan is in relation to student learning, positive climate and culture, a multi-tier system of support, which includes the social emotional needs of our children and the mental health needs of our children and their families. In addition to those three, we have one of our continuous improvement plan areas is operation, which does include finances and also facilities. We try and make all of our decisions in line with our mission and our continuous improvement plan, and try and stay grounded in that, especially in all of our financial decisions and all of the decisions that we make as it relates to spending resources in our school district. It's a very important responsibility that we have. None of those, none of our mission or continuous improvement plan would allow for us paying for city streets and township roads. School districts, we're not in the business to pay for roads and city roads and township roads. We're in the business of education. And $82,000 approximately isn't a small number. So we have been talking with various people. We have talked at our school board. I'm joined here tonight with Chair of the board, Strandberg, and board member Eric Minks, and they may speak later, but we've talked quite a bit related to the topic. And honestly, as you can imagine, it's not an easy kind of thing for us to swallow, as it certainly doesn't fit our mission, and it's hard for us to understand. You know, one of the things that I hear quite often from our board members and is just some confusion around just our recent donation of an easement to the city for the new trails, at which we were happy to have that partnership and provide that easement. And so now, you know, with the idea of being assessed potentially $81,000, again, not an easy thing for us to swallow. We not only represent the school district, but we represent all of those who did entrust us to make responsible financial decisions. And I know that you all can respect that, as you are in the same position as we are. The other piece that I want to just mention is with this proposal, and when you look at the breakdown, there is a piece in there about a turnaround. And that turnaround, the only way that would be able to happen, as far as I know, would be from the school district providing an easement. Another thing that would be hard for us to swallow really is the fact if we donate an easement, that comes with an extra $16,000 price tag. So it's kind of like getting punched in the stomach, quite honestly, is we're being asked for an easement. And by the way, you get charged an extra $16,000. In addition to that, when you look further down, we have some confusion around $4,000 approximately, just shy of that, for city administrative fees that we would be charged and assessed. So there's lots of pieces associated with that our school board has lots of questions on. You know, we really, the real struggle that we have, quite honestly, Mr. Mayor and City Council, is at the heart of everything that we do, we want to be partners with you, and we want to work with you and be good neighbors and all of those things. But you know, this is one of those things where there's some complexities here, and I think that at the very least, our school board would like to see some good faith efforts put on by the city to you know, work with us and be reasonable with some of these potential assessments. So I'll close my remarks there, and I would ask if the other board members felt so they could speak up, but they would have to raise their hand, and you would have to allow them to. So I'd be happy to answer any questions as well, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Barton. I know that at City Hall today, we did address some of those concerns that you raised with the city administrative fees inside that amount, and then also coming through to be how it could work out to be a fair plan, whether it's done over a period of time or made small payments or gone through it. It's never one of those things that you want to have a knee-jerk reaction to government in any type of budget. We understand budgets just as well as you do, that everything is based on the prior year's funding. And so I do think that our city council has taken that into consideration and trying to figure out a way that we could spread this over a 10-year period, and then also take some sort of chunk or help through that process. And I think that Administrator Barbian will bring that up in staff suggestions coming forward. If you have any other comments you'd like to make, great. If not, I'm going to move on to the next person with their hand up. Is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Barton. Next would be Counselor Reynolds. Are you raising your hand?
Oh, sorry. Adjusting. Thanks, sir.
Okay. So I'm coming on Superintendent, or I'm sorry, Education Board Minks. Nope. Coming back to Mr. Strandberg. I'm trying to find him on the screen. It's not there. Yep, Mr. Strandberg just went past him.
Nope, I have nothing more to add to what Ben said.
Okay. Any other public comment regarding this?
I would like to add a comment.
Okay. Administrator Barbie, would like to add a couple comments. If I skip somebody, you're still time. Administrator Barbian.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things, and we greatly do appreciate the partnership that we've been establishing with the school district. I want to thank you. I think that it was a great project. It's a great project that we were able to coordinate and collaborate on to put the trail in place. We were able to obtain considerable amount of grant funding to absorb the cost on that. And the city had decided, with the assistance of putting in the franchise fee, that we would be able to be in a position to put a public improvement that would be best suited for the community to be on the school property. So that's greatly appreciated that the school district was cooperating. And we too have to be aware of our finances and the size of the city's available resources. In this particular case, we looked at this project, and it's on the north end of the city, basically primarily in the township. And looking at the traffic on that road, there's limited benefits currently, as the property is undeveloped and could stay that way for a number of decades in the school ownership. Now, should the school change ownership, that's a completely different situation. But going back to, again, this particular situation with the cost of the roads that are reflected in the assessment of the 81,000, I think Mr. Barton pointed out correctly, there's some admin, engineering, and legal costs in there. And it's my recommendation to the council, it will be when this proceeds to the final hearing, that we absorb those amounts and that amount not be assessed to the school district. So we'd like to, I'd like to make that known, and I think that's reasonable for the council to consider at a future time when the final amount is being determined. In addition to that, I'm recommending that the city council put towards the easement, whether it be a purchase of the easement or a reduction in the amount assessed of about $7,800, which would cover about half of the district's cost. But again, that would be my recommendation, and it would be up to the township to decide if they wish to do anything more. As well, I should mention that easement is something that if the school district would not wish to donate, or I'm sorry, to provide for the project, that again is up to the township. We would, in talking with staff here and with the township, it seems like a good part of the project, but yet is it essential? I'll leave that up to the township and the school district to make that determination as to whether you would wish to proceed with that. But I wanted to make those three comments. I think that the city is trying to keep our working relationship strong with the school district. I think there's going to be many more projects that we'll be able to work with and forward in the future. Perhaps it will be some other additional uses for this land or other campuses. So I did want to make those comments and make sure everybody was aware of that. That would be, in those two items, we would need to, in part, if that easement is going to be part of the project, need to work out in the very near future.
And if I could clarify, I didn't look to see anybody's hands up. What you're saying is a contribution of the total bill would be $4,000 and $7,800, which equals $11,800.
Taken.
Okay. In your statement, I just want to summarize it to say the $7,800 would go towards the acquisition of the easement of the land, and $4,000 reduction, which would be a total reduction of approximately, staff recommendation would be $11,800.
That's correct. Two different areas of the budget, but two total of
11,800. Okay. I'm going to refer back. Administrator Barton has his hand up.
Okay, so I need to I need to unmute.
Yep.
Wait,
You're good. I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't necessarily, first of all, thank you, City Administrator, for those remarks. And we have definitely been trying to work together. This is just a difficult thing, and there is some complexities. So I think we all can respect that. I can't speak for our 7-member board, right? They make the final decision. I can just tell you that I still think it will be hard. It would be a hard pill for them to swallow if they're going to donate a piece of property and have any cost incurred as a result of that. So our hope would be that with the city's proposal or potential proposal, that the township would strongly consider picking up that other portion so that we wouldn't have any cost incurred with us donating land for an easement. So with that, I'll end my remarks.
Okay. And if I could, I can go through and check for hands, but can I go back to our city attorney?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, nope. I just want to ask him one other question, just to make sure we clarified. And so I just want to clarify with the city attorney in open forum or public hearing that the city council will end up making a decision based on a recommendation that they come up with, whether they adopt the recommendation of our staff or if they make a different determination at a later time. Is that statement kind of true and correct to how this process will work, or could you explain it for us, please?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So tonight's hearing is simply the improvement hearing. This is the necessary step for the council to consider whether or not it wants to order the improvement. And that's an issue that I'm going to have to extrapolate on once the hearing is done. But this is not the assessment hearing. So for tonight's purposes, it's a discussion about whether or not the city wants to move forward, and if so, setting that preliminary potential assessment at that high water mark, because as Your Honor indicated, we can go down, we can't go up. However, the actual final assessment won't be determined until we have the actual assessment hearing at some point in time down the road. And within that, the interim, certainly conversations can be had between the city and the school district and see if an agreement can be reached. And if one can be reached, then that can be the final agreed upon assessment number. So this is not something where a final dollar amount is being locked in. We're simply capping it at what the feasibility study indicates is appropriate, and then kind of moving forward from there. So this is by no means the last word the school board will have, nor is it the last time the city staff and school staff will be communicating about this and hopefully coming up with some sort of a mutually agreed upon resolution.
So thank you for that, attorney. That it was helpful for us to go through that. And like you said, we're setting a high water mark, and it always can change and go down from there. I'm going to go back through for the public hearing still open. I'm going to go back through left to right to see for anybody who else wants to speak. Okay, I've gone back through. I just asked, there are people here in the room. I'd ask that if there's any public comment from the newspaper editor or from the Princeton Bulletin Board. Shauna, let it be noted that neither of them raised their hand or got up. Wishes of the council, questions that they have in public hearing, or wishes of the council to close the public hearing? Unless somebody sees a hand up, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion from Councilor Zimmer and a second from, I didn't hear who it came from. Shauna, did you get that?
It was from me.
The second is from Councilor Gerald. I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing at 7:45 p.m. on March 26th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, so I've got this one done. And now I'm going to defer back as the city attorney wanted to discuss this farther.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you very much. So as I'm sure Your Honor and the city council is aware, there's been a lot of work done between yesterday and today on various things that needed to be prepared for the agenda. The initial issue relates primarily to, first, the joint powers agreement between the city of Princeton and Princeton Township as it relates to this particular project. I think it was either Monday, perhaps Friday, but I think it was this Monday that we received an email from, I believe it was the Township's Council, with kind of a general template proposed joint powers agreement with a few revisions. I spent some time Monday and Tuesday with my colleagues going over that, adding in some language that would address a number of the concerns that Mr. Barbian had raised, and points of clarification that needed to be put into the document. That was finalized and circulated by Mr. Barbian. I think it was yesterday, but I might have been late Tuesday. It's my understanding that at least earlier today, the initial response that we had received from the township board members was that they were agreeable to the revisions that we had submitted for consideration. About an hour or two ago, we received an email from the attorney for the township indicating that he was objecting to two of the revisions that were in there under provisions 4 and I think 5, whichever the provision is with respect to payment. I sent him an email. He sent one back. There's, the potential for resolution of one of the points of contention that the attorney has. However, he's still objecting to the language in provision 4. So at this point in time, what's before the council today for consideration down the list of the agenda is basically the city's draft of the proposed joint powers agreement that Mr. Barbian and I are recommending the council basically approve, but then it would go back to the Princeton Township Board for further review and final approval. Bottom line is, no matter what happens here tonight, and I understand that there are representatives from the town board that are present that can speak to their views on this, and if they are agreeable to what has been presented to the city, that's great and that's fine, because ultimately it will be the town board that will have to decide. But we can't move forward tonight with the assumption that there is going to be a final joint powers agreement enacted that is consistent with what's been presented to the city tonight, because of that response that we received from the attorney. So to that end, certainly when the issue of the joint powers agreement comes up for discussion, I'm happy to answer any questions, and certainly the council and participants can discuss it. But as it relates to how far we go with tonight's actions on the assessment, I think we need to stop short of what we were hoping to accomplish, because we really can't. So the next action item after this, since the hearing has been closed, would be to potentially pass a revised resolution. The initial resolution that I prepared called for both ordering the improvement and preparation of plans by the engineer. Even though those have already been done and we have them, we still formally need to order it. However, and that would be the extent of the resolution that I would recommend the council consider passing, which would be a resolution ordering the preparation of plans and specifications by the engineer, but not actually ordering the improvement here tonight in that resolution, nor do we recommend moving forward to the next resolution, which would call for acceptance of the preparation of plans and concurrence with the ordering of, or entering into the contract, the township entering into the contract with a contractor that relates to the city's portion of the project. My understanding that they've already entered into an agreement with the contractor for the township portion, but they've excluded the city's portion for the time being. In addition, we don't even have that contract, and we can't pass a resolution consenting or concurring with the townships entering into a contract that we don't even have yet. So
Yeah, you overcomplicated this for sure, but I do appreciate that. That's what lawyers are really good at. So let's go back to what the problem is in project administration number 4. What word don't you like in that agreement? Or what phrase do you not like and their attorney likes? Let's just see if we can work this out right now instead of overcomplicating the problem.
It's actually the other way around. It's their attorney that doesn't like what we put together.
What does he want to get rid of the whole thing number 4 and just cut it out of there?
Nope. If you give me just a second, I'll bring that up.
If
So
I could, you know, as you're doing that, Damien, if I could, it seems that there's agreement on number 5 per the latest email. So I don't think that's the issue. And I guess if perhaps now would be appropriate for the township members to comment, because there seems to be an impasse. Now, if I understand correct, Damien, what you're saying is that if we approve this JPA with the change on number 5 and put it to the township to make the final decision, we still would not have an agreement in place, so we could not do the next step in the process, correct?
that's correct. Correct.
So even if we approve the JPA, could we do the next step in the process?
The recommendation from us as legal counsel is to go no further tonight than to order the plans and specifications. The balance of the action items, ordering the plans and approving the contract could be done at the study session or probably the first meeting in April.
Or,
You don't have
or
to have
if I
another
could,
public hearing.
we could approve the JPA provided that number 5 was changed per the email agreement and number 6 left as is, correct?
I mean, number 4.
Yes, excuse me, 4 4 left as is, and number 5 would be adjusted per the agreement, per the emails.
And certainly, I mean, we can make that revision to number 5 and leave number 4 the way that it is. Doesn't change the fact that our recommendation is to go no further than passing a resolution, ordering the plans and specs.
Okay. And the JPA?
Well, yeah, and the joint powers agreement, it can then be, if the council approves it tonight with whatever changes it wants to make, and then forward it to the township board for final approval, that's, yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going back to the, I wrote that down, yes. So I'm going back to the township. I'm going to scroll my screen to find out which one of the town board members is going to comment on this. I'm back. I've got Mr. Wickham. If I could just call on you. You're off mute so we can hear you now, Mr. Wickham.
Okay. I can't see myself, but what I see on the screen is the computer screen in the upper right-hand corner. What particular were you looking at for answers, or you had some questions about something?
Yeah, the suggestion from your guys' attorney to adopt or change this. I mean, did you have a conversation with them about that, or do you concur with?
I had a brief conversation. The question being was, I don't have it in front of me here because it's on my phone, and my phone, I'm using it for this conference call. So I believe what was the issue was the last sentence in number 4, and that was relating to if the 429 process had failed. The concern was if for some reason, that was the city's request to get the 429 process, that if for some reason something there failed, that the city would not have basically any skin in the game. All that whole cost of that project would be on the township.
Well, that's stupid. Okay.
So that wasn't in the original submittal that we sent out. We sent the original submittal February 27th, and it evidently didn't show up in the city's mail. So we had to resend it this last Monday, or it might have been the previous Friday.
Okay.
So let Damien.
Yep, I'll let Damien comment on that, and then I got my own comments clearly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your comments, sir. Just to clarify, the exact verbiage is on the document, and that's not the intent, and the language therein is not if the 429 assessment process doesn't go through, the city is not responsible. It's in the event that a determination is made that the city assessments are invalid based on any actions or inactions on the part of the town would release the city. And the reason why that was put in was because of so much work that the township had done already. And quite frankly, the city was not really kind of kept in the loop necessarily on every aspect. And when you're dealing with a 429 project, you do really have to be on top of things procedurally, making sure the landowners are aware and the city is aware. And so our concern was, if the town were to do something or fail to do something and not let us know about it, that would result in a problem with the assessment. Well, that's kind of outside of our control. And we just wanted to have that protection in there. That's it. Not simply if it falls apart for any reason whatsoever, but if it's based on action or inaction by the town that prompts that problem, that would release us from liability. So I hope that clarifies that a little bit.
Doesn't change the fact that it's overcome. We're talking about paving a road.
Mr. Mayor. I think one of the concerns that came up rather late and to our understanding was that the town has let part of the project bid. They've released and awarded part of the project. And I'm not certain that that would be how that could be interpreted by a court of law as to whether or not that might be the item that would invalidate the ability for the city to put the assessment in place. And that's primarily why that statement was put in there, because the town has been advancing this project, and in spite of some of the in spite of some of the cautions in them advancing any portion of an award, and they proceeded to award the project. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to invalidate the assessment. So that's why it was put in there. And again, it's merely if any portion of the town's actions would be found to be in fault. It has nothing to do with the rest of the 429 process. Thank you.
Thank you. I turn it back over to Mr. Wickham doesn't have his hand up, so I'm going to turn it back over to the city council for discussion and where their position is. My position clearly is this: we're working together as a partner between three governmental entities to pave a road. And if we let the attorneys complicate the situation, we're talking about putting asphalt down on a road that's already built. They've gone through this process. We've said in their meeting at the Princeton Town Hall, we're committed to helping all entities work together to make this happen. And so for this to come in at the 11th hour is not I'd say it's typical government, but wishes of the council or thoughts of the council.
So I'll start if that's all right. I have a question for our attorney, who I appreciate the fact that we're getting legal advice from our attorney, and I think we should follow it. My question is, if we pass resolution 20-28 tonight, is there any reason why we can't table the rest of it until all of these last minute changes or recommendations, or till we can come up with some sort of agreement in the next couple weeks? And make sure all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, and then move on from there, because it sounds like we're not prepared at this point tonight, is what I'm getting from the conversation.
Ms. Councilor Gerald, thank you. The resolution number that you referenced, I don't have drafts of the resolution with resolution numbers. I only have what I sent to Mr. Barbie. And can you read for me what the title of that resolution that you're referencing is?
Yeah, resolution 20-28 reads, approving plans and specifications and recognizing advertisement for bids and approving the township to enter into a contract.
No, that is the resolution that we certainly cannot get to yet.
Okay.
That was what the resolution that I was referring that we not get to. I agree that perhaps tabling any further resolutions on the project until we have a final agreement in place may be prudent. I was just indicating that for purposes of trying to get as much done tonight as possible, the furthest that we would go beyond to this point in time from our perspective would be a resolution calling for the preparation of plans and specifications, but certainly there's no need to do that. And your concern is well understood, and perhaps tabling any further resolutions as it pertains to the assessment process would be the prudent thing to do, and let's get a final agreement in place with the township. I agree that the mayor's request for comments by the council as to what the council feels the joint powers agreement version that should be sent to the township board should be. And if you guys can make that decision tonight, we can certainly, you can pass it tonight and then send it on to the township. I'm not sure when their next meeting is though.
Counselor Gerald, otherwise I'll defer back to Bill, Supervisor Whitcomb, to answer the question.
Yeah, I think so. So Damien, what you're saying is the way this joint powers agreement reads right now, we're okay with this verbiage. It's the township that would have to come back to us and say they're not okay with it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Questions from other city council members? Or we can go to Township Supervisor Whitcomb. His mic is on. Scrolling on to Counselor. Any other questions from the counselor? So basically what we're saying is we'd be entertaining a motion to pass Resolution 2020 accepting the feasibility report. No, we've already done that.
We already did that.
So now it's on to the joint powers agreement. So what we would be doing is approving, subject to, or we would, it's Resolution 2026, the joint powers agreement with Princeton Township, subject to the approval of the emails. Because
Covering number 5.
and covering number 5 to make it, what amount is this?
Mr. Mayor, I might be able to clarify that if it helps.
Yeah, oh, I'm ready for Damien, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, no, there's no change in the verbiage really that's there. The concern that was raised by the attorney is in the situation is if there was a change order that came up, and so costs increased as a result of that. And so what I had emailed the attorney was, would he be comfortable if we were to add in some language that says, basically, in the event a change order is presented to the township would need to immediately provide that to us and get our consent to the change order, and then the city would pay a pro rata share of that change order as it pertains to the city's portion of the project.
Administrator Barbian had a comment on that.
Yeah, I think that adjustment seems reasonable and I think that's acceptable. So that would be what the wording on that section would change too. The other one, I think at this point in time, I think we should leave it as is and see if something works out between now and next week, Thursday.
No.
We have a meeting next Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday,
Yeah.
because it comes up. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, defer back to Supervisor Bill Whitcomb.
Yeah, so I think we were really close to having this thing wrapped up. We just ran out of time today. And we have a continuation meeting set for next Tuesday. And that's primarily because these bids expire April 6th, I believe it is. I don't know if Todd McLeod has anything he'd like to add to any of this.
Yeah, Todd here. Yeah, the 60 days is April 6th for our bid bonds with Knife River. But I'm fairly confident that if I gave them a call and said, hey, can you hold your bid for another week or two, they would do that. We've had quite a good relationship with that contractor, so I don't kind of not really want to do it, but we could do it.
So wishes of the council on Resolution 2026, Joint Powers Agreement with Princeton Township, making the approval of the emails, changing the amount, and the change order would be put in there as a condition that they'd immediately have to contact the city if there's any change orders issued. Or we table it until next Thursday.
So Mayor and Council?
Councilor Zimmer.
Yeah, I would really want to move this thing, move it on. And if we can, so if I'm following all of this correctly, we could approve this joint powers agreement tonight, subject to number 5 as the possibility of changing. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
City Attorney, yes. He says yes. because we're changing the amount
Not the amount, we're just allowing for a change order to happen.
within the amount. Yes.
Then that would be my motion.
Okay. So I have a motion from Counselor Zimmer. Clerk, do you have that? She said yes. I heard her through the city hall. So I have a motion, and then could I get a second to approve Resolution 20-26, the Joint Powers Agreement with the change for the change order to line item number 5?
Second.
And second came from Counselor Edmonds? Counselor.
Must have been Jeff.
Yeah.
Yep. Second came from Jeff Reynolds, Counselor Jeff Reynolds. So I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I want to make sure I'm fully understanding here now. So the last sentence in number 4 is the issue that the township is having with this agreement, right? The email that we're talking about is going to be added. It doesn't show here, but it will be added. Okay, the last sentence in number 4 is going to remain, right?
I'm going to refer to the attorney. Is that correct, attorney?
That's my understanding, yes.
Can I make?
I think that has to stay in there.
So it's my understanding that.
Hold on.
Sorry.
No. So Counselor Edmonds, those were your suggestions. I want to defer back to Counselor Zimmer, who made the motion. Is that your consensus?
Go ahead.
Yes, Counselor Zimmer said yes. It goes back to the motion was seconded by Counselor Reynolds. Is that your consensus for what Counselor Edmonds said?
Yes.
Okay, now to the city administrator.
So let me, to be clear on this, number.
You're not on the
4.
camera.
You want me to be on the camera?
Well, there you go. Yep.
But I have to use the mayor's speaker, so, because it causes too much echo when I'm on my own. Okay, and if I could, city attorney, could you look at number 5?
Yep,
Okay, number 5. Now, that is the section that deals with the cost overruns or change orders, correct?
correct.
Okay, so that's the part where we're going to make the adjustment because of what's in the emails, correct?
Correct.
Okay, number 4, we're leaving it as is.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to verify. And that's what the motion does reflect?
And Shauna, that's what the motion reflects. Shauna, the city clerk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I have a motion. I have a second. I have clarification of that. Is there any other comments from the city council? If not,
Oh, is that agreeable as is to the township, people that we have in
it's
attendance?
not completely agreeable to the township, but they have a meeting coming up. And so we'll be able to make an adjustment as needed based on what we are approving subject or what we subjectly be voting on to approve. And so the township will be able to review that at their Tuesday continuation meeting from what Mr. Wickham had said.
Okay.
That satisfies that. And I see heads nodding. I'm going to scroll back over on my screen because I can't see Supervisor Wickham. Yep, he's thumbs up. Okay, so I have a motion. I have a second. I have further discussion. I have clarification. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Moving on, resolution 2028, approving the plans and specifications and recognizing advertisement for bids and approving township to enter into a contract. Defer to the county, or I'm sorry, the city attorney. Could you please clarify where our position sits on this based on our action that we just made?
Based on the comments of Ms. Councilor Gerald and our recommendations on where we sit, it is our recommendation to simply table the balance of the resolutions pertaining to the assessment project, perhaps until the study session next week.
I defer after your comments to Counselor Zimmer. Counselor Zimmer, what are your wishes based on your comments that you made in the prior statement to the prior motion of the resolution?
It'd be okay to table that to the next council meeting.
Okay. Entertain a motion to table resolution 2028, approving the plans and specifications and recognizing advertisements for bids and approving the township enter into a contract.
Is this going to create any difficulty for the township or?
Let's go back. We're going to go defer back to Todd, their engineer and our engineer on this project.
Yeah, I think if we wrap this up April 2nd, correct?
Bob?
Next week, Thursday?
Yep.
That would be our expectation.
Yeah, that'd be okay. We're still good.
So we're still good. Okay. Counselor Reynolds, does that answer your question? We make a motion.
Yes.
I have a
I'll make
motion. I have a
Right,
motion
table.
to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
From Counselor Gerald, I have a motion and a second to table resolution 2028 approving the plans and specifications. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is tabled until next Thursday. Okay. Moving on. Number 8, presentations on our agenda. None. And if I could get Stephanie, please, to scroll down to where we're moving on to here, okay?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
those guests that have joined us for specific items, if they don't wish to hang on, they don't necessarily have to.
If everybody heard that, what Administrator Barbie relayed back is if you were a guest and you talked on part of our agenda and your items are gone, Miss Stephanie, can they just disconnect and it won't affect anything? Am I correct?
Yes, you can just leave the meeting. When you close the box, you'll be out. So
Thank you. Yes. So number 9, FYI reports, announcements, correspondence, boards, and committee minutes. Number 9.1, the EDA meeting minutes of February 20th. Questions or comments from the council? Seeing none. Number 9.2, PUC agenda packet for March 25th, 2020. Questions or comments from the council?
I'd like to give a quick report in regards to the PUC meeting that took place yesterday. I only have one important item to report from the PUC meeting yesterday. Just to let everybody know that in a very surprising and disappointing move, Keith Butcher, the PUC General Manager, presented a resolution number 20-03 to immediately discontinue their in lieu of taxes payment to the city of Princeton. There was discussion and attempts by myself, our city administrator, and our mayor to educate them on the misinformation in the resolution, along with explaining to them the services that their in lieu of tax payment helps to provide for our city. Unfortunately for the residents and taxpayers in the city of Princeton, the resolution passed by Greg Hansen, Dan Erickson, and Mindy Sirks in a 3-0 vote. And for the record, I have not yet taken my seat on the PUC board, so did not participate in this vote. This $52,500 a year decision will impact the city's budget, which is extremely unfortunate, especially during a time of the COVID-19 crisis. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Gerald. Any other questions regarding the PUC agenda packet? Moving on, 9.3, Mille Lacs Historical Society meeting minutes of February 19th, 2020. Questions or comments?
This is Counselor Jack Edmonds. We held our last meeting via telephone conference so that we would not all be assembled at the depot for the meeting. And the depot is not open to the public. I suppose the date would be whatever the governor sets, I would imagine. So, but otherwise, everything else is going fine. A lot of good projects going on out there, and looking forward to getting reopened again.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Edmonds. Did you have a question or comment you wanted to add to that?
I did have a comment I would like to add, and I'm going to stand over here by the mayor's computer again. Jack, if you could relay the thank you to the Historical Society for a Brickton brick. It's in our display cabinet. They also provided us some samples of Brickton bricks so that if there's people who wish to restore the front of their facades in the downtown area, we have some good materials that would be able to be utilized in their processes. So that was appreciated work that the Historical Society did. They're also looking for additional suppliers for these, something similar to, say, reflecting on the history of our downtown. So good to see.
Okay, I will pass that on for sure. I got to be careful what I say here, but I think that they did, somebody in town here or around town did have a big pallet full of Princeton brick that basically they donated, but don't hold me to that as totally factual. But there is Princeton brick around, that I'm sure of. for somebody looking for some, you know. And I will check with Barry on that and get some more information on that.
Thank you, Counselor Edmonds. Let the record be noted, he never gave an address where that pallet is at.
I'm not even sure myself.
We don't want to we don't want a pile of bricks in our parking lot.
No. Okay. 9.4 solar garden. This is an FYI. Is this from staff?
Yes.
Okay. Do you talk about it, or it's in the agenda and we're okay?
Just FYI, the solar garden has went through a variance application process for the airport, and they have some of their garden or some of their solar panels within Zone A of the airport, and variance was granted by the Planning Commission. It seemed appropriate. They made adjustments, and it looks like a great project. As I told the Planning Commission, the only way it could be better is if it was in the city limits. So it's a good project.
Okay. Thank you, Administrator. Okay, moving on to number 10, petitions, requests, and communications. 10.1, wine and spirits grant request for Princeton Pantry. I did attend a meeting at the, it would be a group of the churches had gotten together and talked about our food pantries, you know, their normal avenue for receiving donations and helping community members. And so I had talked with Mr. Hatch, and this has been put together on both of our behalfs of this is something that would be helpful in the time of the COVID-19, just to make sure that we have another source of a mechanism for our food pantry to be able to accommodate for food. I would also ask the council, I know that this goes against policy, but if the COVID-19 does continue, I might ask Mr. Hatch and I to fill out another one of these forms so that we could have a stream of people that would be able to get resources in the city of Princeton for future responses for COVID-19. But for now, wishes the council just to approve just this one for 10.1.
I'll make.
To approve.
Okay, so Shauna, this was Councilor Gerald. I heard her say motion first.
Yep.
Who was the second on that?
I did, unless somebody beat me.
Okay, so I got a motion from Councilor Gerald. I got a second from Councilor Edmonds. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you, council. 11.1, and thank you to Mr. Hatch. 11.1, Resolution 2021, Ordinance 789, rezoning parcel at Fairgrounds, final reading. If you could pull the screen, the share screen up here, the request, and I do see Ms. McPherson on the online here. I would refer back if she has a comment or a question, or staff, however we want to go with this. There's McPherson on my screen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here if you have questions of our request. Otherwise, I don't have anything to present. I'm sure your staff presented good information in your packet, so.
If you want to let me, Mayor, I can just explain quick what it is. We're rezoning one parcel of their property to become a commercial, and it's adjacent to other commercial property. Currently, it's zoned agricultural, and the reasoning is because they would like to put a new sign up, and in order to do that and the kind of sign they would like to put, which is an electronic sign, they need to have a commercial. It needs to be zoned commercial, so.
Okay, Administrator Barbie, would you like to relay any information beyond that?
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Wishes the council to approve or disapprove Resolution 2021, Ordinance 789.
I'll make it, Jack. I'll move approval of Resolution 2021, Ordinance 789, final reading.
I have a motion from Councilor Edmonds. Could I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, 11.2, Resolution -24, calling for the public hearing on proposal tax abatement land acquisition. Staff.
Mayor and council, first couple of things. I know Steve Jackson is online. I'm not certain as to whether George Ellertson is online or not. Steve, would you know offhand? And if not, perhaps you want to go over this, please.
I'm gonna come back up. Mr. Jackson, volume's up.
I don't see that George is on. Well, he's on, but I don't see that he's there. So I don't know if he's just monitoring the meeting or.
Maybe he walked to get a bite to eat. It's getting to be late.
It could be. This is basically just the agreement for. Let me get to where we're supposed to be here. For issuing bonds for the trail project, the fire truck financing, and the land acquisition for the future.
Steve, can you hear me? This is George. I'm not sure if anybody can.
We can hear. We can't
hear me.
see you. You have to.
Yeah, we can hear you, George.
We were looking for you.
Okay, my apologies. The microphone on my end is not working, so I apologize. And so please let me know if you'd like me to step in, Steve. I'll
please.
wait for you. Pardon me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Mayor, members of the council, I'm sorry about lack of technology on my end, but I will go through items 11.2 and 11.3 on your agenda. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Both of them relate to calling for a tax abatement public hearing. And 11.2 is relating to a trail project. And I know Steve or Bob there could add a little bit more color, if you will, to what the trail project is. But that's for, I'm sorry, 11.2 is for land acquisition for a future industrial park. Yep. And 11.3 is for trail improvements. And so council members and Mayor, Your Honor, the action tonight with those two respective resolutions is to call for a public hearing to be held on April 23rd at 7 p.m. Just as a little background, cities have pretty broad authority to finance projects, and whether it be water sewer projects, street improvements, what have you. But the two types of projects that you're referring to here, trail improvement and land acquisition, there's kind of two approaches. One would be hold a referendum, or second, which is, and this is the approach that seems to be more in favor, is general obligation tax abatement bonds. You might think of tax abatement bonds as more of an economic development tool, and it oftentimes is used that way, but it's also used by municipalities for parks improvements, recreational improvements, and certainly other types of improvements where there's not a good fit for traditional bonds. So tonight's action, again, a resolution for 11.2 for the land acquisition and a resolution for 11.3 calling for an April 23rd public hearing. And certainly I'll have my technology figured out by April 23rd, and I can participate in that meeting as well. Down the line, eventually what this would lead to is the issuance of bonds to finance those two respective projects. We anticipate in the month of May that in conjunction with your May 14th City Council meeting that we would have resolutions for you that would be awarding bond sales, one for the land acquisition and a second bond for the trail, plus an additional financing tied in with that for the purchase of a fire truck. So the only action, Mayor and members of the council, for for you this evening relative to those public hearings is considering those two resolutions. Mayor and council, I can certainly address any questions you might have.
I'll go first. If I could defer to our city attorney, can we call both public hearings at the same time, or do we have to make them separate because they're separate resolutions? How is the legal procedure of that? Could you explain that to our council, please?
Yes, you would have two separate public hearings on the two separate resolutions, but they could be done back to back.
Got it. Yep, so does the city council understand that then?
All you're saying is that we could have them both on the same agenda, but they have to be separate. Is that what- Am I understanding that correctly? Or?
Yep. So I would be asking to follow up on Councilor Edmonds' response. I'd be asking for the city council to approve a public hearing on 11.2, opening it, going through the process, asking the questions, asking you to close it. Then I'd be going back to 11.3, asking you to open another public hearing, go through the questions and the responses, everybody in the Zoom, everybody in the room, and then ask you to close that back, and then ask you to make a decision on those items together. Am I right, city attorney?
Correct. You could either have the public hearings back to back and then pass resolutions back to back, or have the first hearing, first resolution, second hearing, second resolution. Either way.
And the city administrator pointed out that what we'd be doing is advertising to have the hearing on April 23rd and May 14th. Am I right?
Mayor, this is George Eilertson, Northland Securities. Both public hearings would be on April 23rd at your city council meeting. The eventual financing or issuance of bonds, that's what we're referring to in the month of May. But the two actions tonight relate to two separate public hearings on April 23rd.
I understand. Councilor Edmonds, does that sound fair to you?
Yeah. Whatever.
Will you?
Whatever has to be done. That's
Yep. So I'd ask that the city council approve the resolution calling for the public hearing and proposed tax abatement of land acquisition and advertising for a public hearing on April 23rd.
Mayor, Council?
Yes.
Jules here.
Councilor Zimmer.
Hey, a question that we had that letter up there a little while ago, and it's gone now, but we had three things on there. One was the land acquisition, and the other resolution is for the trail. What about the fire truck?
Yep.
Do we have to do one for that too? I see the fire truck financing.
So
Mayor, would you like me to address that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for the question. It is no action tonight on the fire truck. Eventually, this will be, as you can see, there's three items on there. Trail project, fire truck financing, and land acquisition for the industrial park. Items 1 and 2 will eventually be issued together as one general obligation bond that's tax exempt. Since they're both, since you have the ability as a city to issue general obligation bonds for both of those improvements, we could do that as one common general obligation bond. The reason why the third project, the land acquisition for the industrial park, needs to be done separately is because that is actually, as per the city's bond attorney, needs to be done taxable, so that that land acquisition is done for eventual private purpose, meaning that you would be purchasing that land now and then potentially selling it later to private business. Those kind of businesses that would locate in your industrial park. So that's the reason why these are two separate financings. Trail and fire truck can be done as tax exempt financings, and the industrial park land acquisition is taxable, so that's a separate financing as well.
So resolution 20-25 is not only for the trail, but it's for the fire truck also.
At present, there's no mention of the fire truck. We don't need, the fire truck has separate financing authority that doesn't need to go through this tax abatement process. So the process that we're going through of calling for a public hearing and getting public comment on April 23rd is just so the city has the authority to issue tax exempt or I'm sorry, tax abatement bonds. The fire truck is silent tonight. That's something that you have authority where you don't need a separate hearing for that.
Very good.
Very good. So any other questions from the council? Or I would ask, since you were the last one, Councilor Zimmer, would you make a motion to approve Resolution 204 calling for a public hearing on a proposed tax abatement land acquisition for April 23rd and advertising it?
Yes, I will.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Yep, dash for 11.2, Resolution 2024. Council, could I get a second on that?
A second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Anything from our city attorney on this?
No, thank you.
Nope. Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. No further discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Flipping over to the second page of our agenda on the backside, 11.3, Resolution 2025, calling for a public hearing on a proposed tax abatement for the trail to be advertised for a hearing on April 23rd. Wishes of the council.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 20.25.
I have a motion from Councilor Gerald. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilor Reynolds. I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? City attorney?
Nothing.
Seeing none. All those in favor, send by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to 11.4, Resolution 2023, Comprehensive Plan. Are we going to go to Jen Edison from WSB on this, or Stephanie first?
I'm actually going to introduce Eric Zweber. He's been the one he presented to us at our last meeting, and he will just give us an overview again here.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is the 16th public event we've had over the last 4 years for the comprehensive plan update. Our last meeting with the City Council was earlier this month on March 4th. There are 5 chapters that have been updated as part of this comprehensive plan update. They are the community profile, housing, economic development, parks, and land use. We have incorporated as an appendix the 2008 transportation chapter. So that will stay in effect as was adopted in 2008. We conducted a public hearing with the Planning Commission on February 24th, in which one change was requested, that along the west side of County Road 1, the highland or higher elevation land be changed from open space to low density, which has been conducted. And then when we talked with the City Council on March 4th, we talked about the airport safety zones and those be revised on the land use map, which has occurred. The current safety zone is shown on blue, and then there is a blue dashed line for what would be the, if the runway was extended. So with that, I would take any questions or comments that the City Council may have.
I'll go first. Could we ask that Stephanie scroll down to that attachment with where we are going to talk about the airport? I think she clicked over. She's working on trying to get that there. Thank you, Eric, for that, the work you did on here. And I remember the last council meeting that came up with, you know, what steps we're going to take even in this comprehensive plan to eliminate small steps, clearly lots of small steps in order to eliminate the crosswind runway. And so I'm just going to wait here just for a second. I know that Stephanie, I can see her logging into our computer server in order to pull this up. And for anybody who's watching this video, this is the interworkings of how the system works for getting agendas and calls of order and the archiving of all of the cities. Would say basically the chapters of our book, the book of history, the city of Princeton is right here. And this is what you're witnessing happen for archiving purposes.
Looking for the map.
Yep, she's pulling up the map. Administrator Barbian just stepped out and he came back in.
Further down.
I seen a part of a map.
Well, we're having technical difficulties on this historic event of,
Stephanie, do you want to see if I can share my screen? I do have that map pulled up on my computer.
Eric, her mute button is on. I can see that on my screen if you want, and then Stephanie could unmute. Or there, she's almost got it.
You can just share. If you go to the share button on the top of the screen, Eric, it'll let you share, I believe.
Well, it says you cannot start sharing screen while other participant is sharing. Could you?
Okay, there.
There you go.
Try it again here. Okay, give me 1 second here. And let me change. So this was the map that we seen at the work session, study session. And so this was the revision that is in the comprehensive plan today. You could see the dark solid blue line is the safety zone for the existing runway. And then you see on the south, there is a blue dash line that would be the extended safety zone should the runway be extended. Does that come across for you?
Yep, if my microphone should be on, but yes, I can see those adjustments on there. I did see that Alex, our airport engineer, was squinting his eyes at there. Alex, did you want to say anything about that from KLJ? He's going through his mic. I can see him moving to get to his mic. There we go. Hi, Alex.
Hi. No, I don't really need to say anything about that. That's pretty clear, and appears to be correct. So.
Okay. Well, no, we do appreciate.
Unless you guys had questions.
Yeah, I appreciate you on the call, so that way we could discuss that with you and here, and then you're part of that conversation to help our airport board. Other comments or questions from the council?
if I could, Mayor, there's been a lot of work on the comprehensive plan. And I think that overall, it's a good balance, and I'd hate to see all the work go down without being adopted, because there's been a lot of effort over the course of 2 years. Much of it was done prior to my arrival, but nonetheless, there's a lot of good work. So I think it reflects the majority of the community's interest. I think that there's further improvements that we can always be making, and I look forward to being able to help the council integrate those as we go forward, as well as working with the Plan Commission. It's quite an effort. It's great to see the community involvement from before I was here and to this point as well.
Thank you, Administrator Barbian. Coming back to myself, I appreciate the additional changes and steps that you made from the last meeting to this meeting in order to get to the 2020 City Council's goal, which looks more like this for our airport runway and the fly zone. And other wishes from the council, or if I could get a motion from one of our city council members for resolution 20-23 approving it.
Yeah, this is Jack. I guess the only comment I would have is it's a blessing to see that crosswind runway. If it's not totally gone away, it's very close to it. Been something that should have been happened a long time ago, in my opinion. So I'm grateful to see that moving ahead. And otherwise, I pretty much agree with everything else. So.
Other comments or questions from our city council members? If not, I'd entertain a motion from a city council member to approve resolution 20-23.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion from Councilor Gerald. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Councilor Edmonds. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to 11.5, Resolution 2027, allowing 2 stamps on the checks during the COVID-19 emergency. This would be back to our finance director, or understanding like the mayor's role and the clerk's role and the finance director's role for how checks are issued and written and approved through our city council.
Correct. The standard procedure is that the finance director, clerk or administrator, or the mayor has to sign each check. Currently, we allow for one of those 3 signatures to be a stamp. We're just saying that for a contingency, in case of illness or whatever, that we allow having 2 stamps. Every attempt will still be made to do 2 original and 1 stamp, but we just want the ability, if illness or inability to be at the office to sign the checks, to allow for 2 stamps.
And the date that this starts and the date it ends, is there, I just don't see the end date on here. Maybe you could help me.
I guess at this point, we're saying is during this COVID crisis. So we would probably come back to you with a follow-up resolution afterwards. It's difficult to put an end date at this point in time. So we're just saying that we're going to allow it starting today. And then we'll come back with another resolution eliminating that section.
Questions or wishes of the council? I'll ask a question just for fun. This doesn't affect anything that has to do with our audit that is done annually from the auditor?
No, I think being that the council is going to address it, and because of the situation, I think it will go through the audit process fine.
It wishes of the council to approve resolution 20-27.
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Zimmer makes a motion. Could I get a second?
I'll second it. I guess just what if the auditor, I mean, not likely, but would have issues with it? Would we have to bring it back and do something different, or?
No, and as I stated before, every attempt is still going to be made to have 2 original signatures. And in most situations, I think that'll be possible.
Okay.
It's just, we want to be able to make payroll and pay our bills. So we're just asking for this additional leniency during this time.
A motion, I have a second. I have further discussion. Is there any other further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Unfinished business 12. 12.1 Northland Securities Agreement for taxation abatements. This must be a service agreement.
Yes.
Steve, would you like me to explain this one as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor George Eilertson again. Sorry if you see me. I'm sure my screen is black there. But these relate to, as I previously reviewed, we've got tax abatement hearings coming up for the trail as well as land acquisition. There will be eventually, like I indicated, 2 separate financings done, likely in the month of May. So the financial planning agreement and we've got 2 here. One they're kind of back-to-back documents. They each relate to one to the tax exempt bonds and the other to the taxable bonds. It's really to engage the services of Northland Securities to help the city through this tax abatement process, doing the public hearings, helping with getting the resolutions together, and then transitioning into the assistance with the actual sale of the bonds. And then the closing of the bonds with the bond attorney, and eventually getting the city the proceeds in the month of June. So Mayor and members of the council, that's what each agreement speaks to, is the the services that Northland will be providing relative to the two eventual bond sales, as well as the process that leads up to that.
Questions from the council for George? If not, I'd take a motion to approve the agreement for the tax abatements.
I'll make a motion.
Motion's made by Councilor Gerald. Could I get a second?
Second. Yeah, I'll second it.
Councilor Zimmer seconds it. I got a motion. I got a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. 12.2, video recording council meetings. Staff.
Mayor and council, this is an item that had been discussed, maybe 6 months ago. Alderman Jack Edmonds brought this up last meeting and requested it be on the council for consideration. I think that Andrew Gerard has been doing a great job of coming to all of the meetings, I believe, maybe the study sessions, and recording the meetings. But the question came up as to whether or not we should take advantage of some of the technology that we have. Not only going Zoom meetings, we're automatically broadcasting these live, but it also brings up the question as to whether or not, when we get back to regular council meetings in person here, whether we should be doing the filming of those meetings. And that's a decision that the council wanted to discuss, or Alderman wanted discussed by the council to make a determination as to how they want to handle the meetings.
I turned it over. We'll go to Councilor Edmonds first. This was a topic of discussion he wanted to start with, so we'll let him start and then we'll go from there.
Okay. And again, Ms. Gerard does a fine job, but that is not an official archive or documentation of our meetings. She controls that. I guess if we went back and wanted to get a copy, she probably would give it to us, I would hope. But initially I was going to ask, or just suggest we move this item until we do get back into the city hall. But after I watched the public utilities meeting yesterday, and they are in the process of doing this as we speak. It was on their agenda yesterday. And after seeing that, hearing it, their process, my recommendation to the council is that we go ahead and start utilizing the equipment that the school district put in. And I have spoken with Michelle, business administrator Michelle, and I took the liberty of doing that here a while back, just for my own curiosity. And I also talked to their IT person. She was in the room with us. It's according to them, there's no issue, no problem with doing this. And we should have, since we have all this equipment and all the technology we have today, we're all set up for it. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing this. And I think all meetings should be recorded, because we can move the tables close to the dais, and I think the camera picks up at least the majority of those meetings. And I don't know if we want to take an action on this right this minute. If we do, I'll certainly make a motion to that we start as soon as we can. And we're doing it now with this Zoom.
So I think, and if I paraphrase what you're saying, and just correct me if I'm wrong anytime. So basically what you're saying is we'll probably move this out until the April, I believe it's the 16th meeting, because that's how long going to go through the Zoom process just by default for what we made on that emergency meeting last week. Yeah, last week we did that. And so would you feel comfortable if we just asked the clerk to push the 12.2 out, because we're arguing to do it, and that way we have a project that we're going to continue this past the April 17th process, which according to the governor's report, I don't want to get too deep into this, but it's going to go past April 17th, according to the governor's plan that he initiated yesterday.
Yeah, and as far as taking official action, certainly, yeah, we're not rushed for that right this minute. I guess the only thing I might ask is that staff start working on it, start setting the table and see what it would look like if it's implemented. You know, get with the school district and their IT or whatever, Sean or whoever does it. I don't know who's going to carry the water here, but.
If I can just speak, sorry, it doesn't let me raise my hand. So we did have this happening at our last meeting. We had our computer and everything hooked up to their camera, so it is possible. We also just got a new camera that would be really good to use for meetings like the EDA that goes around the room and it shows like a picture view of what you're seeing right now of my face to the person who's talking, and has a 360 view and 360 microphone. So I think for meetings like the park board, and if you're talking about all meetings, then that would work great for that, or also be a good option for study sessions. So we don't have to worry about moving the tables around. So just an FYI, if you want to move forward, we have been talking about this, Steve and I have, and we are starting to move forward. So
yeah, I guess the most important part of this is that we have, the city will have an official documentation to archive. Other than this, is meaning no disrespect to Ms. Gerard. I mean, she's welcome to be there too, I'm sure. I don't think we want to change that. And I don't know, I suppose Damien would have to answer that question if there is an issue, but for me, it's just the official, I guess I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but the official aspect of the whole thing of having a
just like what the
documentation.
Yeah, just like what the public witnessed in our process of how we're archiving the other information. So if I would you entertain a motion to table this to the clerk? Is it the 16th or 17th is our meeting in April?
It is we have one on the 9th and then the 23rd.
Counselor Edmonds, will it be okay if we table it until the 23rd and put it on the agenda up front now?
Yeah, certainly as far as for official action, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Again, as long as the staff is
working on it
and it gets going on.
Hey, Mayor, Council.
Yep. Hold on. Let's get a second quick first. He made a motion.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did.
And it can fail. So, okay. So he's got a motion on the table to table it until the 23rd. Could I get a second on that?
Second.
I got a second from Councilor Reynolds. So I got a motion, I got a second. Now let's go further discussion. Councilor Zimmer.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask the question, but I couldn't
couldn't
find where to raise my hand, so I apologize for that. But the question I have is, how long do you have to keep these tapes? If it's an official recording, how long do you have to keep it? And where do we store it? And that sort of thing.
Okay, go back to the city attorney, please.
I'm not the city attorney and I don't know the length of time, but I do know that right now these meetings are being stored in the cloud by Zoom, and that's likely where we would keep them again, or on our server at City Hall.
Because if our minutes are kept forever, and if someone wants to retrieve those minutes 20 years from now, we have to provide that to the person, and this would be very similar. This would be the same thing. So it's something also to think about is, do we want to have that responsibility to do that, and the capability of doing that? Something to think about, that's all.
Yeah, those are very valid and great questions. I think that, you know, having this conversation now is great because we're doing Zoom. We're working on this. This is guaranteed to happen for the public of Princeton and everybody else for the next 20 days. And then we'll be able to rediscuss this again on the 23rd of April. And then the city attorney will be able to weigh in on the what the League of Minnesota Cities is a recommendation or what they're talking about at the league, because clearly your question that you're bringing up today, Councilor Zimmer, is a question that other city councils are going to have to deal with too as they enter into the Zoom technology through the COVID-19. So I have a motion, I have a second, I have further discussion. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I just looked up the data retention schedule, and audio and video recordings for non-closed meetings are required to be kept for only 3 months after the minutes are approved.
Wow.
So that would allow us to just let them go on YouTube and let them expire.
Well, when we get our new, when we get our new website, we will have all of the videos linked on there also. So they'll be there for at least, we can choose the year, 6 months, whatever you guys think is best.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, with this information just came out now, are the minutes going to be separate? Because the minutes we do have to keep. This is Shauna's question, I guess. Do you separate the two then, or how do you do that?
I would think Shauna would still keep minutes. The way she has been.
Well, but approval of the minutes was part of this process, but I guess the minutes aren't.
Right. So,
what does Damien have an opinion or input? I don't know.
On the call. I think Damien left the call, and so that's why I said if we would be able to.
No?
Nope, Damien's here. His hands up. We'll let Damien go. He's on mute though.
Okay. Jack, Councilor Edmonds, thank you. The data retention policy is one thing, but I do want to check into with the league and colleagues about how long they're retaining audio and video, and whether or not there is a recommendation for extended time frame. As with respect to the minutes and the approval of the minutes, those can continue the way that they are, and Shauna can continue to store them the way that they are. Audio and video would be stored, I'm sure, separately. There'd be a hyperlink to wherever it is, kept separately.
Okay, and then probably the council could set a retention period of whatever we wanted. Well, we'd have the minimum standard, I guess, but.
Right, and that's what I want to look into.
We could go a year or 6 months or whatever.
Correct.
That would be a decision, but yeah, the minutes would be separate. Okay, now I'm clear on that now. Thank you.
Yep. So I have a motion. I have a second. I have further discussion. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Moving on to 12.3, melting snow fence at parking lot issue. I'm going to defer this over to Chief Todd Fredericks, who we talked about at the last meeting, but he wasn't here because of a call. And so he's here tonight, and I'd like to defer to him now. There he is.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you know, there was somewhat of a natural snow fence that was placed at the lot between the road and the Shopko area. The snow is now gone, and we're starting to get a couple calls here and there. We have identified 3 calls that we received that we felt were teetering on the line of criminal. So we've forwarded those complaints down to Sherburne County for review. I guess the conversation earlier with the mayor was, maybe trying to all get together again as a council and try to come up with a solution or help out with a solution, I guess. Just trying to keep you appraised of the issues that are occurring. I'm assuming it's going to get probably worse as we get through the summer here.
And the reason that this got put on the agenda at the city council, I'm just going back to the city council to remember, we're working on this, and the public needs to know that this is a priority of the city council and staff members to come up with a solution and a plan, which is this lot does not belong to the city. It's private property. It's owned by a private party individual, and it is his prerogative to do within the means of the law to be able to protect his property. And so, that's why we were talking about this, to reopen the conversation, because clearly we discussed and I talked about it. And I sent him, I don't know if it's an email or text message, I can't remember, but I did catch the post office, Princeton Post Office, going there to collect mail and use that parking lot for commerce. And so, that's another thing that law enforcement has reached out to our postmaster at the 55371 post office to discuss, what it takes to relocate that, to help make sure that if somebody is there to do commerce, that they're not going to be towed. Do you have any further information regarding the postmaster, Chief Fredericks?
I do not. We haven't had any calls, of I guess a mailbox type incident. I mean, obviously it does raise a question of if somebody's there dropping off mail, would something like that happen? I think as our department would respond, we would, obviously use discretion. But as soon as I hear back and, try to get together with someone over at the post office, we can, try to work through that piece, I guess. It appeared it was a little bit more difficult than we thought in regards to the moving of it, just for the fact of it sounds like it's there's a little bit of volume that comes into that mailbox.
Thoughts from our city council? I'm just going to ask the clerk. We'll just put this back on the workshop agenda, and maybe we'll get back. The postmaster will get back to us by then, and if not, we'll discuss that again at that time. Clerk, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else in 12.3? Seeing not, moving on to 12.4. Alex from KLJ, and it's on his screen wherever Alex is there.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. The plans and specifications for the upcoming taxiway project in 2021 are coming to a close. And at this time, KLJ is requesting permission to bid those plans and specs and provide you with prices at the May 7th council meeting.
And this was the process. If I just want to go back and talk about this, this was the process that we were going to do to go through the bids and process. And we had to do this first in order to apply for the grant. Am I correct on that, or am I?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Thoughts from the city council? I think that Commissioner Minsky was on here. I messed up his name last week.
That's correct.
If we could scroll over to his thing and see if his volume's off, if he has a comment or question. I'm trying to scroll to him.
He's on the advisory board.
He's on the advisory board. He's not on a picture here, but he moved his microphone on. Mr. Minsky, do you have any questions or comments?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Oh, there he is. So we have that. Okay. And moving back up to the city council. Wishes the council to proceed forward.
Yes, I'll make a motion to move to the next step here with the bidding and schedule.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Nope, I didn't hear that if somebody said it. It's just background noise. I'll make the second myself. I have a motion. I have a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
We'll see you back in May. We'll probably be somewhat probably the same way, just an FYI, according to what we were told. Number 12.5, police canine insurance check. Chief Fredericks or Finance Director? That's background noise from somebody there, Stephanie.
Mr. Mayor, member of the council, can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. This was more of just an informational piece. Steve and myself have been working with the insurance company, League of Minnesota Cities, in regards to our the medical piece that we had with the dog before our current one. And I'm glad to report that the insurance company found that there was the medical piece there. You know, we did have insurance on the canine program and the dog, so we were able to get reimbursed for, at this point, the full amount.
Okay. Thank you for the update on that. Any other comments from City Council?
Good deal.
Yep.
Yeah, good work, guys.
And so that total check amount was for, just for the public who may not be reading that, is $21,114.62 that was paid out from the League of Minnesota Cities as a reimbursement.
Can I just ask that amount of money, then will that go right back into the police department's budget, or will it just offset it, or does it go in general fund? Go back into K9?
Yep. So at this point, we have it going back into the canine. There's actually some additional training that's going to need to be done. With the winter setting in, when we got the other dog, we were able to not get some of the training pieces that needed to be done in the summer. So there's going to be some training expenses that come up along with, you know, just obviously, well, we just purchased the new kennel crate for the dog. We were trying to hold off on that until we got kind of situated. So as of right now, yes, it's back into the canine fund, and that's, I think maybe Steve could help out a little bit. I think that's primarily where we had taken the funds out of.
Yeah, and that's where I would like to see it go personally. As a member of council, that's where it should go.
Yeah. And I think that's our recommendation, that since the expenditures came out of that fund, and we had even taken some CIP money that we had planned to use for the canine purchase, to use for some of the training costs. And so being that we took it out of the canine fund, we thought we'd put it right back into it, so.
And good. And the consensus of the council, that's okay?
Yep, I'm fine with it.
Yes.
For me,
Yep. Verbals for the confirmation on that. Thank you to police chief, and thank you to the finance director, who will take direction as a consensus from our council. Anything else on 12.5? If not, moving on to 13.1 under new business, advertise for 2020 seal coating bids. Public Works Director Gerald.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, before you is we're looking to go out for bid for seal coat for the year 2020. In addition to what is on here is some additional yardages. We've done this in the past with Greenbush Township, where if we include them and the contractors know what they're bidding on, it kind of helps drive the price down a little bit, in lieu of what we're looking at with COVID-19, oil prices dropping. I believe we can say successfully do the 25% that I want in the city with money to spare, barring any changes in oil prices at this time. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
I think that the newspaper had.
This is the spreadsheet for just the areas that are being covered. I believe there's also a map.
I think the newspaper had mentioned that it's the Union Times, back on the memo. On the page up, Stephanie.
I didn't. Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
So go back on this sheet here. The ad will be listed in our website, and if the council approves it, in the Finance and Commerce magazine, and then in the Union Times.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I had my volume down.
Yep. That is a catch by our newspaper editor. Thank you for that. If you could, Stephanie, please roll back down to the map. a little bit farther down. Thank you. And this is upside down? No, it's sideways.
Sideways. So north would be to your left.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I can do the math on that. Okay. I mean, I trust the process. In our city, for those that are watching or those that are here, we go through and do a portion of town every single year through this, and that's part of our city's maintenance and transportation plan. And this complies or follows with what we've done in the past and basically what the plan is for the future. Am I right, Public Works Director?
Yes, that is correct.
Thoughts or wishes of the council?
I'll make a motion to advertise for the seal coating bids.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. And I just wanted to add my concern that my question was answered. We're gonna do 4th Avenue, so it'll kind of look like a new road compared to the township's new road, I guess. So.
Yes, Councilor Edmonds, that's correct. And it will tie in. I'm hoping to work with the contractor so that it at least I can get their cutoff point so that the new asphalt matches in where we let off. And if I didn't say it, typically how this works with the township is that when the township has their roads done, they just reimburse the city for what's been put down on their areas.
Okay. And this will be a discussion for later, I'm sure, but I think at some point we should clean up our right of way a little bit to maybe get some of them trees out of there and stuff and dress it up a little. But that's for a later discussion, so.
That's, if I may, sir, that's already been done.
Okay.
Not the whole thing, I don't think, is it?
I had 3 guys for 3 days cutting trees up there and trimming brush, so.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess. Okay, yeah, whatever.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilor Reynolds, and who is the second on that, clerk? Or am I still waiting for the second?
Well, I'll second if nobody else did.
I think I did the second for discussion.
Okay, and that's what I thought. I thought Councilor Edmonds rolled the second and then rolled into discussion. Okay, so I got a motion, I got a second, I got discussion. Is there any other discussion?
Yep.
There's an echo back. No other discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to 13.2, the preliminary plat. I think those that were waiting for this on the end, it's just how this night rolled out because of what we're going through. I'm going to turn my screen and share it with Administrator Barbian.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. And again, as the mayor said, greatly appreciate the patience that James and Amanda have shown tonight and waiting to the end. I apologize for not bringing this to the front. We appreciate all your efforts here in Princeton, I want to tell you. From what I can tell from the screen, it looks like Todd Olin, their engineer at Sambatech, is still online. Amanda and James Berglund, and I believe their architect, Chris Thielen, is still online. What I'd like to do is to turn it over to Todd Olin to present or introduce his team and however they wish to go over, give an overview of the project to the city council and the public. So Todd, are you online?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you good. Yep.
Excellent. Please excuse any interruptions from dogs barking in the background. That has come to be a occupational hazard for us now.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all online here tonight, the design team. James and Amanda Berglund, owners of the Princeton Golf Course and developers of the proposed restaurant and brewery, along with Brian Schroeder. He's the head of operations with the golf course right now and will be with the brewery and restaurant as well. And then Chris Thalen is the architect at Wilkes Architects. The packages that were submitted included site plans, a survey, a preliminary plat, and architectural renderings that show the elevations of the building proposed. Site plan, of course, shows a layout with parking, the building situated on the property. It's about a 2.8 acre property that's immediately north of the existing parking area for the golf course. The two uses will be separated by an existing ditch that is utilized by city stormwater runoff that runs to the east. Yeah, there we go. Just got that on my screen here. There's about 89 parking spaces on the main portion of the site, which doesn't quite meet the required parking. So we are placing a reciprocal parking and access easement on a portion of the golf course parking to share parking.
Oh, yeah.
We went through the layout and fit a delivery truck that's a semi-size truck through the property. So it accesses, it comes in, turns around, backs up to the building, and then it's got the space to exit as well. The landscape plan includes a pretty robust plan. We're doing our best to screen this use from the property, the residents to the west, as well as improve the view for the patrons on the patio, and folks that are inside that are going to look out over the golf course or look into it. I'm going to leave the description of the actual building and the facade to the architect. He's done a wonderful job putting this together with direction from James and Amanda. And we believe it's going to be just a wonderful addition to the community. As far as the preliminary plat goes, it's shown there on the screen. Excuse me. There is a golf course road along the south side of the property that's labeled Golf Course Road to be vacated. That is actually, we're going to be requesting formally a vacation of a portion of that right of way. That came as this is going to be a little bit of a house cleaning effort. There are pieces and parts that were vacated, what was originally called Judicial Road. I'm going to guess before the city maintained and owned that right of way, and now it's Golf Club Road. It's actually labeled wrong on there. It's supposed to be Golf Club Road. But anyway, we're proposing to vacate a portion of that, leaving a bit over the required frontage to make it a legal lot. Since we submitted, we've met with the city administrator, Mr. Barbian, and teleconferenced with city engineer and utilities, and we've got some technical issues that we've got to work through, but that doesn't change the preliminary plat in any significant way, we don't think. So yeah, we're here tonight to request approval of the preliminary plat, and if this goes through, then we plan on submitting the final plat along with a formal request to vacate a portion of the Golf Club Road to the city by the 31st. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Thalen to walk you through the architecture. And then, of course, if Amanda and James want to add some things, of course, we can do so.
Todd, if I could, just before we go, you said the 31st. Is it 31st of March or 31st April?
I'm sorry, the deadline for the next submittal will be the 31st of April here, and then, or excuse me, March, and then we'll be looking toward the 23rd, the April 23rd meeting.
Got it. Okay, just for clarification, thank you for that. If we could go on. I'm clicking down here to make sure we. Done.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is Chris Thielen from Lucas Architects speaking. So yeah, basically we have a single-story slab on grade, a little over 9,100 square feet brew pub. That includes a bar, kitchen, full timber brewery, dining areas, and outdoor patios. It's has some varying parapets heights with varies between I believe 16 and 24 feet. The exterior materials are a mixture of LP Rusted Series lap siding, EIFS stucco finish, and thin brick veneer. And then you can also see some other like rustic elements as far as a timber frame and on and along the front facade, which faces the south. This is a really great project to work on. Enjoy the client and the team. We have really good project that we're putting together, and we're just excited to give them the opportunity to work on this. And as we move forward, we hope it's a win-win-win situation for both City of Princeton, the client, and the community.
Great, thank you. Yeah, your photos are they're fantastic. Would defer any questions from our city council for Chris. If not, I'd defer to the applicants, the Berglund family, if they had any questions or comments they wanted to add to it. And I got to scroll my screen here to catch up with the Berglund family. There they are. Any questions or comments or anything? Nope, they're all good. They gave a thumbs up for those that are watching in a different venue. I defer back to our city administrator, who will give a final comment then.
Mayor and council, and this has been a good project to work with. It's good to see somebody who's looking to invest and looks to the future for community. That's good to work with. There's a recommendation before you that does recommend the preliminary plat approval. There's a few conditions on there that they're working through, as was mentioned, technical issues, and I think it'd be appropriate to approve it given those conditions that are reflected in the memo.
Defer any questions, Public Works Director, any issues, or the city engineer, Jen Edison. Scroll through. Public Works, we're good on that.
The conditional approval is recommended.
Okay. Jen Edison shakes her head. Yes, we're okay. City Council. Oh, I just did that. I'm sorry about that. City Council members, what's your wishes? Screwed up the screen.
I'll recommend approval of the preliminary plat with the conditions.
I have a motion with conditions. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I got a second from Councilor Gerald first. So I got a motion from Councilor Reynolds, a second from Councilor Gerald. Any discussion, Councilor Edmonds?
No, I would just concur with what's been said. It looked like a really nice project, and could be a super addition to our community.
And only other comment is, thank the Berglund family for not only taking the risk of investment on the golf course in its initial stage when the city was looking, the city and our community was looking for investment. We're very proud to have the Berglund family as a owner in our community and have made drastic steps in improving the golf course that we have now and what they were working with at the clubhouse and the deck and the patio area. So I know that, moving forward, this is going to be a fantastic addition to our community, and I thank the Berglund family for that. Any other comments from city council members?
Yeah, I'll just concur with that and say hi to Brenda and Amanda.
Anything else from any other city council members? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Berglund family. Moving on to 14-14. This will be a new thing for us here, going through the bill list. Councilor Zimmer normally does this. Does he have that there?
I have it. I move to approve the bill list, which includes the manual checks as listed on the manual bill list for a total of $152,344.89. And the items listed on the liquor bill list and general city bill list, which will be checks 80898 to 80945 for a total of $177,909.56.
Thank you for that. I have a motion from Councilor Zimmer. I have a second from Councilor Reynolds. Is there any further discussion on the bill list?
Yeah, I actually have two quick questions I'd like to ask.
Yep, two quick questions from Councilor Gerald. Do we have, can we go back to Finance Director Jackson? Make sure he's online right now before you. Okay, he is. Okay, so we're ready, Councilor Gerald.
The first question I have is in regards to a $500 bill for Nelson electric motor. I'm just curious, it says install clarifier motor. Was that just for the installation alone, or did that have any repair work or It just seems like a lot of money for just an install. I'm just curious about that.
I'll let Chris respond to that. I think that was just the installation, but I think the motor might be a little difficult to maneuver.
That was installation. They had to take one out from the other clarifier and put it in another one. So it was really a 2-for-1 deal.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Mhm.
My second question is in regards to the online retrievers for canine boarding for $75. It's listed under the fire department, and I'm just wondering if that is where it belongs or if it's supposed to be under police.
Well, that's where Todd told me to put it, so I don't know. But
He did.
Where's
No.
Ron?
And
So-
Todd's not here to, or Ron's not here to respond. So
Yeah.
no, that's a mistake. I'm sure it gets coded to the right spot. So
Okay, sorry.
That was,
Todd.
yeah, Ron was conveniently that Ron was not there. It should be a K9. That was the kennel cost for the dog. And I feel like we can't think of where Jason was at.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just thought it was odd. It was under fire, so
my mistake.
that's all right. Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second, and we're not pulling those bills. We're paying those bills, right, Counselor Gerald?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Any other questions on the bill list? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 15, underneath miscellaneous, we added approve, disapprove late fees for sewer bills through the COVID-19. This is a staff add-on, and I'll let staff go, but we actually need to formally agree on this. I know that the PUC put out a memo, but they didn't formally have a meeting regarding the change of a policy. And you know, for city staff, you want to make sure this is very clarified and there's a policy adjustment and it's agreed on by the city council in its entirety.
So Mayor and Council, I'd just like to take a minute to introduce this, in this time of the COVID-19 crisis. It's something that many utilities are doing, not only Princeton Utility, but others across the state and nation, where we are doing what we can to help those that need the assistance and waiving late fees. And this is something that the council can consider doing for the sewer bills, and I bring it to the council for consideration and action.
So if that kind of makes sense from a standpoint of a clerical thing, you know, maybe the general manager has the ability just to waive fees, whatever he wants to do. But for the city council and how we operate, it needs to be voted on, and it needs to vote what month we start it and what month we end it, or if we follow the governor in his COVID-19 response. But that's what staff's looking for clarification from our city council to unify that process. Wishes of the council, thoughts from the council?
Well, I don't know why we can't just approve it and put a end date contingent upon on the conditions. I guess when life gets back to normal, but I don't know how you can put an end date on it.
Could I
we can certainly implement it.
Just go with further notice.
Well, do you want to go for, otherwise I was going to defer to the city attorney and his thoughts on how we would set this policy or go through it. I mean, I don't know. I'm okay for whatever you guys come up with. I just wanted to, we got to come up with a consensus in a public hearing. You can't just do it on your own on a whim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if you are going to enact such a policy and it's designed to be temporary in nature, it would be best if you could put it on like a sunset date, end of April, sometime in May, something like that.
I suppose another thing you could do is probably put it in place as long as the emergency conditions are in place, which we're going to be considering in the middle of next month.
Well, would you suggest that we just copy what the Governor Walz has decided to do underneath his declaration? So it would go for as long as the governor's declaration.
Well, the governor's declaration or the city's declaration would. I guess I have a better handle on when the city's declaration is going to end. I don't know when the governor's is. But whatever the council's wishes are, we'll honor.
Wishes of the council.
I don't have a problem with proceeding, but whatever the legal, whatever Damien says, I guess we can or can't do would be the, I guess,
So-
I don't know.
So, and this isn't a motion, this is just a suggestion. So,
I would just say May 1st and extend it, see what happens after May 1st. And extend it if you need to.
How about the next 2 billing periods?
that goes to May 10th. The bills for our,
Whatever. You
or
know,
12th.
it's May 12th or, whatever.
Okay, so, okay, get a motion then. I'm gonna just verbalize this and somebody's gonna make a motion off the top of it. So Princeton Public Utilities, Princeton City Hall will be waiving all sewer late fees through May 10th billing cycle for the year 2020. Damien, is that correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay, wishes the council to approve that as I verbalized it or make a modification or change.
I'm okay with it.
So it's a motion from,
Okay, do we need a motion?
yes.
Okay, I make the motion.
I have a motion from Counselor Zimmer. Could I get a second?
Yeah.
Counselor Edmonds had seconded it. So I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. So right now we picked the date of May 12th, but should we put something in there about a sunset clause so that if we need to extend it, we can, or are we just going to end it on May 12th?
Defer to the city attorney.
Well, the way the motion is right now, yes, it would end on May 12th. That's the sunset. If you want to continue it past that, you'd have to have another meeting. So I don't know if you want to have this back on the agenda for the first meeting in May before the 12th. So everybody can assess where we are at that time.
Counselor, I'm sorry, Barbarian has a question.
Perhaps I could just offer that the addition of, which may be extended at the council's option. At a later date.
Perfect. You can deal with it in the first work session, first Thursday in May.
Correct. Okay,
Be the 7th.
be the 7th. Okay, so I got a motion and I have an amendment to the motion that Counselor Zimmer had made. Counselor Edmonds, will you take that as a friendly?
Yes.
I have a motion, I have a friendly. Is there any new discussion based on that fact? Seeing none, and the clerk is going to put it on the May 7th work study session agenda to review again at a further date, right, clerk?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second, I have a friendly, I have other discussion. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Any other things for miscellaneous? If not, entertain a motion for line item number 16, which is the council.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. Motion was by Gerald, second by Counselor Zimmer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned at 9:34 p.m. on March 26, 2020 from Princeton City Hall, 705 2nd Street North, Princeton. Verified that for the video recording. Thank you, everybody. Stephanie was going to go through and end the Zoom process, and then thank you to the Princeton Bulletin Board, and thank you to the editor for being here in your presence. Thank you. Mr. Barbie, I'm just going to leave. We